What's up, everybody, and welcome to ESO Daily. I'm your host, Mysticraven. Alright, guys, so I'm going to be doing a couple battlegrounds, but in this segment, I'm going to be talking about the importance of debuffs and poisons. Alright, so I had this scrub nub comment on my one of my build pages, and basically thought I was a plebe because I use poisons. This is fucking hilarious. I mean, he's trying to be a YouTuber, whatever. I wish him the best. And he's talking about mid-maxing, and I'm like, dude, go back to fucking Gilliam, man. Just go back to Gilliam. You're better off, whatever. But all the big boys make no doubt about it. All the big boys are either going to be running some sort of poison, or they're going to be running debuffs. Especially Battleground players, but it's not limited to Battlegrounds. They will use it in Cyrodiil. The reason being, the top dogs know the importance of the debuff. They understand it. It's a religious thing to very serious players. When you use a poison, you're going to lose the enchantment proc, which decreases the amount of damage you can deal, right? This is true. However, it means nothing. It means jack shit if a player is built solid. That damage output on a PvP doesn't mean jack shit. They can negate it. They can prevent it. They can go. There's many different options around. If I throw a shield, right, I can go ahead and delay or prevent damage unless it's, direct. If I use wings or some sort of deflection ability like absorb, I can negate projectiles, right? There's a lot of different counterplay that goes into PvP. But you have to understand, if you debuff your target, even though you're losing the damage up from the enchantment, you gain more damage on the back end because of the debuff applied. A prime example of this in this build would be used to my Pierce armor, right? A lot of people are not going to think to themselves, should I be running a debuff? Well, the thing about this is a debuff, right, guys? When I'm using a debuff, it's weakening their resistance. Remember, in PvP, people stack resistance. When I reduce their resistance, guess what? They take more damage because penetrating values are applied in PvP. Very important. Another skill that I want to keep in mind if I'm going to switch out any other skill is Power Extract and Disease. Disease is going to apply a debuff to their healing. Another way you can see this is in the Befoul. Right? So if I go over here and I go down here, we have Befoul. It amplifies the effect of disease abilities, right? So what that does is reduce the amount of healing the target receives. Players use self-heals, right? If you reduce the amount of healing they receive, they start taking more damage. It's no-brainer, man. They can't heal as effectively, so they're not getting all that heal. It's screwing them over big time. If I look at Siphoner, it's another debuff on my light and heavy attack, so I can reduce their regen. If you add a drain to that, you can completely negate almost their entire amount of recap. So if I'm going to be using Siphoner, I do a heavy or light attack, I reduce their regen, and then I drop a drain on them, which reduces their increases the cost of their abilities by 30%. Two or three abilities, they're depleted. Now Siphoner on top of it. Now I'm reducing their regen capability. It's taking them out of the fight. All the big dogs roll poisons and debuffs. Poisons will apply the effects that sets don't, like Minor Maim, Minor Defile. All of these effects are going to be applied in poisons. Right? It's not about the dot damage, but with Horns of the Reach, it is actually. Horns of the Reach, the dot damage is increased, right? So now with Horns of the Reach, it takes less time to apply the poison's effect. So they've cut the duration in half. Poisons are now really fucking serious in PvP, guys. You guys think this is a joke? It's not a joke, man. It's serious. And a lot of times people didn't want to run poison builds, right? Because it took too long for the dot damage. Burst damage was the way to go. Poison damage, though, is unavoidable. It has to be cleansed. If you do not cleanse it, It's there. It's going to kill you now more than ever, right? It's an applied effect. Unless it's cleansed, you're done. Now add a healing on top of that, healing debuff, right? So if you're running anything that reduces their healing, add the poison damage on top of them. And if they ain't got a cleanse, that healing isn't going to do jack shit. Those poisons are going to tick a lot faster, and then all they have to do is just hit you once or twice with a nice little burst. The poison will do its job effectively enough to bring any target down. Guys, now here's the big deal. Another thing I want to talk about is when should you not be maybe running a poison, right? So for example, I'm dealing Oblivion damage. I already have my debuff in my skills on this tune. So I want to take advantage of the Oblivion damage. With Horns of the Reach, Oblivion damage is getting slightly nerfed, right? But Oblivion damage is cut straight through penetration, right? That's what's so nice about it. When I go ahead and I use my charge and everything procs, the Oblivion damage is applied on top of it. Procs the enchantment because of the weapon, weapon ability. Boom, click, done. Applies it. I'm on a CD, right? But also poisons have a CD. If you don't have any effect that's going to be reducing the targets, whatever you desire at this point. So if you're going to be running drains, you're not wanting Oblivion damage. But if you're wanting to go ahead and debuff your target because you don't have enough skills to bring them down, and you want to use more violent poisons, okay, that's going to be applied. But when you're going to want Oblivion damage is when you're not going to be running poisons, because Oblivion damage will just cut straight through it, man. Now, if, for example, if you didn't want to use Oblivion damage, you're running a lot of range abilities, you want to increase some of your skill capabilities, by all means, then use an increase enchantment. But Crushers is going to be a lot more powerful in PvP, the reason being because of the penetrating values. Once again, you'd be better off with Crusher even in that aspect, more than Increase, because everybody stacks resistance. So I never hardly use Increase in a lot of PvP. Some situations I do, but Crushers is a lot better in PvP. So, I don't know, man. And then there's defensive enchantments. Think about that, like shields. You can apply shield enchantments. There's a lot of different PvP, all rules. I've always said I can never critique PvP builds or PvP videos. Why? Because in PvP, all rules are out the window. All of them. They're all gone. It's not PvE, it's PvP, right? Each player is going to, structure their build specifically for one function. Now that's going to leave a vulnerability in that build somewhere, somehow. Problem of it is trying to find it. Now, I know a lot of players want to go ahead and, try to bash me, but really the big dogs stick up for me. And I'm not even on their level. I always tell people I'm not the best, never claimed to be. But I'm competitive. I keep in there. And everybody on this platform that is a hardcore PvPer knows me. They all know me by name. And that says something to my credibility as a PvPer. And all of those guys run debuffs, poisons, drains, all these things. So when you get certain players who want to come in and don't know what the fuck they're talking about, it's an insult, because it's like, you don't know what you're talking about, man. Well, go take them all. Even Fang Rush has talked about poisons. He said, get the drains out of there. Nobody likes them. They're a pain in the ass. But he uses them, and he's admitted that. Why? Because they're a pain in the ass. They're a pain in the fucking ass is why. Believe it. Poisons are a pain, and they're going to be even more of a burden when Horns of the Reach comes out, and they're going to be taken serious, even more serious. You're going to hear Q-Cures everywhere getting fucked over by poisons, but I'm glad about it. I'm happy about it. This is what I want in PvP. I don't want burst damage to be rating supreme. I want a lot of options to PvP. That's what this game is about. In PvP, if you need to take debuffs and poison serious, even if you're never going to run a poison, you're never going to run it. Let's say you don't want a poison, right? That's fine. You better be paying attention to your debuffs, You better be. Because the reason being, if you're not running anything to reduce any of their effects or abilities, prepare to get your ass smacked. Be prepared for it, right? And you're going to get beat regardless. So we all do. We're all going to get beat. But in those situations that you really were clinching and you were really struggling, you really should have had maybe that debuff up, right? I've seen Templars never go down. These guys that I play against won like 3v20, 3v30 people. 3 of them. They will annihilate teams. They will annihilate them. One of the main reasons being they have usually a tank, a very tanky healer, like a Templar tank, which is the most hardest fucking build to bring down to its knees. It's based magicka, it's mitigating a shitload of damage, and it is hard to take out a Templar tank. It is insanely a pain in the ass. Even a DK can be somewhat rough, but you get a Templar tank, it's fucking a nightmare. So all of a sudden, these guys will roll up, right? All they'll do is just keep themselves healed and then let the DPS, stay in front of the DPS just enough to keep the damage off of them and let the DPS do its job. Now, until you actually debuff that tank, you're not bringing them down. You're just not. So I come rolling in, I see this, they're recording videos, and I'm like, what the fuck are you guys doing? And next thing you know, I'll debuff them. And they'll start taking a shitload of damage. They know who hit them with the debuff. Because why? Because their DPS is now starting to chase me down. That's what they do. They know who's on the debuffs. Guys, listen to me, man. I know what I'm talking about in this. I've been doing this a long time. And in MMOs, debuffs in PvP has always been Uno rule 1. How do I get this person to become weaker? How do I weaken my target? You debuff them. When you debuff them, it makes them vulnerable, and they're going to take a shitload more damage, and they're going to die a lot quicker. It will take the most heaviest PvPer and bring them to their knees. If you ignore that, that's your choice. That is your choice. But believe it, it's important. Next week, I'll actually probably do a video on how to craft some of these nasty fucking poisons for you guys, so you guys can have some insight and advantage in that. But I'm going to be doing some battlegrounds here, and if you have any questions or comments, please post below. I do want to thank you all for watching, and once again and always, have a nice day.